Next guest, John. John Yeoh, Chief Scientist for the Cloud Security Alliance. First of all, thank you for coming here and looking forward for your lecture. What a nice color of blue.
Hey, thanks.
Oh. It's coming from abroad, Shamsa.
Wow, thanks so much. 10 minutes, huh? I feel like I'm speed dating or something like that. So this is great. How do you get to know me in 10 minutes? Man, thanks everybody for being here. This is pretty cool. You know, I wanted to really just talk about, you know, the CSA demystifying AI and kind of our approach to AI. I think it's things that we've done before. I'm John Yeoh. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at CSA. Everybody knows who the Cloud Security Alliance is, right? Come on, it was a trick question. This is the CSA Summit. So yes, I hope everybody knows who the CSA is. So as Chief Scientific Officer, I'm head of R&D. I also do a lot of our federal engagements, and then I engage with startups, because startups are at the heart of innovation, and I think the heart of innovation is right here in Tel Aviv in Israel. So you may see me here a lot. I've been coming here the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm not going to stop just because I've met some incredible people here. And wow, this is like speed dating. You guys are like getting to know me. I'm getting to know you. Who is excited about AI? Who is like freaked out about AI? I mean, I think I'd be raising my hand too. And that's just the thing. I think a lot of what we've done is kind of a similar approach to AI. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. You know, we're going to go back like 15 years ago, back when cloud was around. And cloud had the same kind of disruptive effect, right? Where people were worried about like, oh my gosh, like compute elsewhere, how, you know, how are we going to deal with this? And the approach that CSA did, this is, you know, 15, almost 16 years ago now, is we wanted to extend a security controls framework that was specific to cloud. Does it sound a little bit familiar? We're trying to do the same things right now with AI. And what we did is, if you look up here, we looked at really existing platforms or existing frameworks. We had ISO 27001, 27002. We had the audit frameworks with COBIT. We had legislative frameworks and industry frameworks like PCI and SOX. And then we took what was unique about cloud. So the SPI framework, the SaaS, Platform as a Service, Infrastructure as a Service, that was a unique aspect that we actually implemented and came up with a new framework called the CCM. People probably heard of the Cloud Controls Matrix a little bit here. So we're starting there, so I hope people are somewhat familiar with it. If you don't know what it is, it's a control framework specific to cloud. So what does this look like when it comes to cloud and cloud controls? I think this is one thing I wanted to share is there's actually a lot of overlap even with cloud and the existing technologies that we had back then or the existing frameworks that we had back then. So if you're familiar with NIST, NIST is, you know, the US Information Security Framework, 853. You can see how similar it is with cloud. ISO 27001, everybody's familiar with ISO, I'm sure they are, right? You see a little pattern here too. We're seeing a lot of similarities on these frameworks overlapping. PCI DSS, everybody probably does a credit card transaction, so you're familiar with that. But this is kind of the picture we're looking at, that even though cloud was implemented, there was an extension of what we did, but it incorporated a lot of existing controls and approaches that we took. And so to me, that was very similar to what we're looking at now with AI. I want to reflect on the latest, like the challenges that we face from a technology perspective for a second. So if we go back to the day of the internet when it came about, people really focus on, oh my gosh, we need to focus on this network because now everybody has access to my network. Everybody's accessing, you know, the websites. So these are the two things that are really important to us, right? Networks and websites. So things like cross-site scripting, I think everybody remembers that, right? Where you can actually inject an attack and extract something that you're not supposed to get, right? So we're exfiltrating data. You know, suddenly cloud comes around and we're feeling the same thing. Okay, we're focused on the infrastructure part. SaaS, of course, is a big element of that. So what do we see when it came to something like that, like SQL injections on databases, right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to do more, inject more code to pull something out that we're not supposed to get, or data exfiltration. You know, speed up along too, and we had mobile and IoT, and it was kind of similar, where we had endpoints, we had applications, and so again, we're looking at now remote code execution kind of attacks, right? So RICE attacks where, hey, we're actually trying to inject something into endpoints, into applications, and extract something that we're not supposed to. And now here we are in today's age of AI. We have LLMs and the data that we're trying to protect. Does it sound a little bit familiar? What are we looking at now? Prompt injection is kind of a thing. So if we look across the board, we're always looking at, it's kind of the same approach. We're trying to protect people from accessing information that they're not supposed to. I mean, think about how similar these are, right? Cross-site scripting, remote control execution, SQL injection, prompt injection. It's kind of the same thing a little bit. Now, I get it, there's differences, right? We have the deterministic behavior of AI, which is different, but at the same time, it's the same approach. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not starting from scratch. We've kind of done a lot of this stuff before. We've seen this before. And so this is kind of the approach I wanted to share, at least the way that CSA is looking at it too. So that's kind of what we did when we looked at how do we extend controls for AI. We kind of took that approach. All right, let's start with what we know. We know about cloud, because AI, we see this as an extension of cloud. All the LLMs are hosted in cloud environments, right? How do you interact with an LLM? There's an API there. So the control plane might change a little bit, but a lot of the stuff stays the same. So we looked at the existing controls of the CCM, and so we actually did this. So a working group went through this exercise. 10 different countries were represented. We had anywhere from, in the beginning, we had about 60 people, and it extended over 700 people getting involved in this. And we looked at the existing controls, and we thought, hey, how do these apply specifically to AI? How are they cloud and AI related, so we could actually see which controls apply specifically to cloud, specific to AI, and which ones were the same. One thing that stood out too was from an identity perspective, right? All the existing controls that were written were very specific to human identities. And if you're dealing with AI technologies, we know that human identities are not the only identities, and that non-human identities are going to be critical there too. Model security was certainly something that was unique, and we wanted to make sure that everything's still aligned with existing standards. All right, we got to start on the other end now too, right? So to make something very specific for technology, we need to look at the technology, and so we looked at the OWASP top 10 LLMs. CSA had an AI initiative that looked at a threat taxonomy for AI, so what was unique to the AI models. And this is just a list of some of them. I think you're familiar, like prompt injection, data poisoning, model theft, sensitive data disclosure. These are things that we've probably seen before, but you look at this, and so one group started from scratch. We literally looked at these unique aspects of AI and addressed what threats, what controls actually would help us prevent or remediate against these threats, right? So that's a big deal. We started with the existing control framework, and then we started with the technology to find out what was unique. And hey, big surprise, right? There was 80% overlap of what was existing and a 20% extension of something new. Focused really on model security and maybe on the API part, because we talked about that indeterministic behavior of AI. So not just input gateways, but also output gateways. Those are kind of the unique aspects of things. So I think this is the approach, and this is what we ended up with. We ended up with a controls framework, again, that had an extra 20% of controls. It applied things specifically to the tech stack, the architectural stack of generative AI. And that took us through that whole life cycle data management. So I thought that was a pretty unique aspect of how the AICM came about. So did people kind of see the correlations here, right? Was it really that different? I mean, yes, there's a little bit of differences, but 80% overlap. What I'm trying to get to is that I think we've seen these types of attacks before. We've seen new technologies and how they're different. And I think just where we're at right now, we're at kind of 80% of the way there already. So I think I like that aspect of things, right? It makes me feel a little bit better knowing that, hey, the governance approaches that we've had, the compliance frameworks that we have now, they can be applied today, and we're kind of maybe 3/4 of the way up the mountain, and we can take a little bit of an easier look at AI, and it's not so intimidating. So I think another cool aspect of what we did at CSA too is we tried to operationalize exactly how all these existing frameworks kind of work together. So if we're looking at addressing risk with AI, you saw in that last framework 243 controls to address AI. That's kind of a lot too. But if we take a capabilities-based risk assessment approach to things, which means that we're not looking at just like, hey, I got to apply all these controls to a specific AI application or vendor or product, but I can actually base that product based off of system criticality, the AI autonomy, access permissions, and then that impact radius. Now I can actually apply these specific controls to the criticality of that AI application. So I think, again, not just having a compliance framework that exists, an extension of AI, but in being able to apply that to specifically how I use that AI, I think is going to make a much simpler approach and hopefully makes AI a lot more approachable for everybody. So that's pretty much it. This is where you can download some of that stuff. It is free. We got this. I think we kind of do, right? Again, not too intimidating. We're about 80% of the way there. Thanks for listening. I hope this makes things a little bit more easy to consume. Thanks.